Today in this session for Author Once, Deliver Everywhere, my name is Amol Anand. I'm a principal technical architect with Adobe Consulting, and I've been working with AEM for the last 8 years-ish.
And I'm Daniel Gordon. I'm with Adobe Tech Marketing, and I also specialize in Adobe Experience Manager. I was also a consultant like Amol for a number of years. So yeah, the two of us combined have probably been working with Adobe Experience Manager back since the CQ days. And yeah, thank you for joining. So today we want to talk about, the title of our session is Author Once, Deliver Everywhere. And so we're really going through some of the capabilities with the AEM and really how AEM is can be used as a hybrid CMS. So one of the key takeaways we want to start off with is really how can you effectively manage content for multiple channels and use all the rich capabilities of AEM. The second key takeaway is just about how you can use AEM effectively and really scale that content creation and reuse that content across channels. And then lastly, now that we have all this great content, let's make sure that we can deliver it across our different channels and really optimize that content so that it's going to be optimal for our different audiences within those channels. So speaking of channels, I think we all sort of recognize these days. I'm sure there's been a ton of presentations throughout today and tomorrow just talking about the vast amount of digital channels there are, everything from website, mobile, IoT devices. And for marketers, this is a great opportunity, but it's also a huge challenge for them in how can I manage all of these different channels. And on the development side, on the technology side, for your IT department, they also have a challenge in how can we effectively support all of these different technologies. And so just to kind of level set and bring everything around to where AEM fits in, let's start with the traditional content management system. And this is really where AEM started once upon a time. And it was really focused on delivering HTML to your web channel. That used to be the only real channel. And basically with a traditional CMS, we have our author. They're able to do some in-context editing just within the single content management system. And that same system is going to be responsible for that HTML delivery out to our web browser-based channels. And then really in the last couple of years, we've seen rise of the headless CMS. And this is kind of a response to all of these different channels, right? And so the goal of the headless CMS is kind of to deliver this content in an agnostic format. This is typically JSON, which is kind of this lightweight language. And whether you're an IoT device, whether you're a mobile app, you're any other sort of third-party system, you can kind of look at that data and that content, parse it, and display however you want to do it. Now with the headless CMS, you still need some sort of authoring capabilities, but again, because you're sort of decoupled from those end channels, this tends to be more form-based authoring, and again, it's really focused on delivering that content in a JSON format. So we've kind of sort of compared and contrasted these already. I won't go through everything on this slide. But in terms of traditional CMS, that's delivering HTML. Headless CMS is really delivering that content as JSON. And you have a little bit of different authoring experiences between them. The headless CMS is able to support larger or more multiple technologies, whereas the traditional CMS is more of like a single application stack. But basically, with AEM and kind of today's modern enterprise ecosystem, you really need both, and it really just depends on the use case that you're looking to achieve. I'll go back. I saw that. Also, I think we'll make the slides available.
Yeah, we'll share the slides after, so you don't have to worry about it.
So now let's talk about sort of this omni-channel authoring and like what are some really effective ways you can scale that creation and reuse of content within AEM. So like I talked about before, you may, having two different systems, one to manage your website, one to manage the content for your mobile app or whatever third-party system, is going to be really difficult. It's a big part from a content authoring and marketing standpoint is just having that sort of campaign and orchestration and really delivering a single consistent message to all of your customers. So if you have different systems, it's going to be really difficult to keep that message consistent. You're also going to have, duplication of effort either on the authoring side. Maybe you have content authors or marketers logging into two different systems. And then also from an IT standpoint, they have to maintain and spend time maintaining two different systems. So we really think of AEM more as a hybrid system where we can, with AEM as this single central layer, can support our sort of HTML delivery to our web channels, as well as support our mobile and IoT devices and deliver that JSON to our other channels. And the important thing here is that we're not going to author the same content twice. And so you can see here with that sort of third bucket, we have our channel independent content. So we're going to take pieces of content or fragments, extrapolate them from a web specific channel, extrapolate them from a mobile specific channel, maintain them centrally so we have the same message, and then reuse them across. And so there's really two features of AEM that we're going to kind of go into that really promotes that process, and that's experience fragments and content fragments. So experience fragments, this is kind of an assembly of components that's stored centrally, and it's really just a fragment of an experience. And then content fragments is a little different. It's a little more structured. It has a data model behind it. The content fragment itself is the actual content based on those data elements, and then we can surface that through a different content fragment component. And so we're actually going to jump into a little demo because it's a little more interesting to see. All right. Okay. You guys can't see the screen. Let me Amol.
Let me try and figure this out.
I don't know if I have to leave presentation mode. Sorry about this.
It should pick it up. Let me.
There we go.
Back. Sorry about that.
All right, sorry about that. So the first thing, we'll jump into AEM for kind of like a live demo. Everyone loves live demos. Things might go wrong, but we'll do our best. So the first thing that we're going to look at is what an experience fragment is. And if you're familiar with AEM authoring at all, you basically have different components that you can drag and drop on the screen. So this is kind of the authoring experience for an experience fragment. I have an image component, I have a title, I could add other components and sort of compose, maybe this sort of banner or advertisement. And then as an author, I have that in context preview, so I can kind of see that this evolve image here isn't, it's white text on a white background, so I can sub that out. We can go into our, a subtitle component. We can add and make update changes here. Or 6, yeah. We'll go with. And so that's really like the experience for an experience fragment. You also have the ability to have different variations, and sort of you can make sort of orchestrate a campaign on Facebook or Pinterest, and you really manage that snippet of content in the same location. Now, a content fragment is a little different. It's much more structured, and all content fragments are backed by this fragment model. So you've got, for this one, we have a weekend event is our model here. We've got some structured data elements like a title, description, a date, city, type, and image. And then based on that model, we can then go in to AEM assets and create all of these different fragments. So in this scenario, we have a series of events that is going to be promoted on our website, and we want our content authors to just use AEM to manage all of the content for those events. So we've got one for Evolve session that was based on that model, and you can see it's really just a form-based authoring here. Based on that model, we can put in the title, we can put in the description, we can of course make all of our changes here in our content updates. So just add that. And yeah, you have some really structured data. So you have not just form or text fields or text areas. You can have drop downs. You can have dates and whatnot. So I'll just go ahead and save that. So now we've looked at experience fragment and a content fragment. If we just want to use those with an AEM owned endpoint, like AEM sites, we can actually go. So I've got an AEM site here. And if we want to use that content just on our AEM site, we're able to just do that seamlessly within the AEM authoring environment. So if I want to find that experience fragment that I was working on, that was like our kind of banner with the Evolve logo, we can just drag that into our page. You notice that the entire fragment, I can't edit individual pieces of it. It's still managed centrally, but I've got the image and I've got the content. And then if we want to add a content fragment to our page, we'll scroll down. We're promoting this Evolve session specifically, so we'll go ahead and drag that into our page. And when you drag a content, this is kind of the default view for content fragments. Remember, it's kind of agnostic of any sort of layout or styling. The content fragment relies on whatever end downstream channel to really style that. So in this case, it is AEM sites. So I have already kind of pre-made a style for it. So once I apply that, now it's basically taking that data element, but me as the developer gets to apply the styles and choose how I'm going to display that content. So I took the image, I actually displayed the image instead of just the path, the title, description, all of the different data elements. And so that's kind of the key difference between an experience fragment and a content fragment is like the experience fragment, you have that in context editing, but you see it as the author. On the downstream channels, you don't really have an opportunity to sort of slice and dice that and choose how it gets presented. That's going to be much more maintained by the content author. So, and then on the content fragment side, Amol's going to get more into this. You do have that opportunity on the downstream side to really choose how you want to present that data to the end user. All right. So. And so we kind of already done a compare and contrast. Both experience fragments and content fragments, have their place. It really depends on sort of what use case you're looking to target. And with that, we'll go into omnichannel delivery. Turn it over to Amol.
Thanks, Danny. So let's just head back to talking about delivering this content, right? So Danny's created this modular content in AEM. Your traditional authoring, you drag and drop onto a page, push it out, end users see it on the website. So that is your traditional HTML delivery. We can also take the same content in AEM and through content services, get a JSON representation of the same content, right? This is useful because there are other channels like we saw, IoT, mobile, other third-party applications or like a single-page application sitting outside of AEM that could consume the same content and get the structured JSON out and then use that, style it however they want to, be very channel specific in how you interact with your audience and take the same content. So the goal is to centrally manage the content once, edit it once, manage it in one place, but then now we're distributing this content everywhere through all our channels to talk to our consumers. So just a little bit of background in AEM. All the components that we drag onto a page are backed by Sling models, and that's what enables us to actually give a JSON representation of the same model content. So let me now go into the demo, and what I'm going to do is,
I think it's still.
oh, here I need to end show, I guess.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same evolved session content fragment that Danny just created and dragged onto that page. I'm going to send it through a workflow. And what the workflow is going to do is basically trigger some endpoint that will push this information to other channels and make it available. So I have a little workflow here. It's called omni-channel workflow. I'm going to send that across. So while that's happening, what I did want to show you is what the JSON looks like, right? So we have this content sitting in AEM, and this is using content services. We are able to get the JSON representation of all these different content fragments that are sitting in AEM. So you can see the structure of, here's the title, this is the description, image, price. So all those items that you saw in that model that Danny was showing earlier, that's available here, and all the values are available. Okay, this is the event image, and this is the string, this is where it lives. So now, if I hand this off to a developer who's developing a single page application or a mobile app, they can consume this content, style it however they want, deliver it through the mobile experience or through a IoT experience, very specific to that channel. But the content itself is, presentation agnostic. There's nothing here telling you where to put the image, right? So let's go back into my email and take a look at this. So I got an email saying, new weekend event, evolve session. Now, if I open that email, I'm getting the same information that is in that content fragment that Danny created, right? The same author and AEM once, deliver everywhere, the title, the image, the body, venue, etc. And then, typically in an email, there's some sort of an action. You can open a mobile app or whatever. So just to kind of show you what this would look like in a mobile app, if I go down here and take a look at all the events, these are all the events that are sitting in AEM that have been published out, right? And I want to go down to my Evolve session event. I see it down here. Again, it's the same information, right? So the information hasn't changed. Your message is consistent, right? But for mobile, for example, if I want to make it more actionable, maybe I'll add like a Google Maps link for the address, right? So that it's actually useful and I don't have to copy and paste it. I can directly just hit something and make it actually useful and functional. So that's very specific to mobile, very specific to each channel. So the goal here is to take the same content and make it available everywhere, but I'm not authoring different systems. I'm not authoring the same content in multiple places, right? So another cool thing here is what we built for this demo is a integration with Azure bot services and Cortana. So I can ask Cortana some information, and hopefully she'll give me back the same info that was already in that fragment. Ask Adobe Weekend, where is Evolve session? Come on. I swear this was working.
But Adobe Summit WK.
Ask Adobe Weekend, when is Evolve session? There we go.
1:45 to 2:30 p.m.
Let's try the other one again. Ask Adobe Weekend, where is Evolve session?
At Pendry Hotel, 550 JST, San Diego, California, 92101.
So you get the point, right? So essentially here, what we're trying to do is we have all these different outlets where our customers are interacting with us, and we want the same content to be available in all the different channels that they are interacting with us in, and we want that to be consistent. So let me now go back to the home page that Danny had earlier added some content to. So for example, I don't think
I published it.
Oh, okay, great.
Go ahead and publish it.
That's fine. We'll publish it. So he's added some information here. I'm going to publish the page from my authoring environment. Clearly, one of them hasn't been published before, so we'll tell that to go through as well. I'm going to go here to my published site, look at this, and then I should see the same information. So like this is the experience fragment, and if I go down, I'll see the content fragment that he added and applied a style to, right? Now let's say I was lazy to kind of scroll down from the fold, so I just want to chat and ask the same question, right? So I'll be like, where is evolve session? And I need to get the same information back. This is the same information that was sitting in that content fragment in that first screen that Danny was editing, and we're now utilizing that content across all these channels, right? So now let's kind of talk about how we made all of this happen so that you get an idea of what we're talking about.
It's like mostly magic, but some.
It's not magic, it's all technology. Come on, we can do anything. All right, so the website channel is fairly straightforward. Anyone who's familiar with AEM, we're already doing this, right? You publish your content, you drag it onto a page, throw it up, and then you go to your published website, and then you get to see, the end user sees that content, right? SPA, very similar. Drag and drop something. This is using SPA editor in AEM. You drag and drop some content onto a page, publish it out, and then the end user sees it. The only difference with SPA, is that it's a JavaScript framework, right? So it calls for the model.json of whatever's on that page, and that's similar to the JSON that I showed you earlier. And then it takes that and then presents it however the SPA needs to work. With mobile, it's slightly different. So with mobile, the first thing we did was we published the fragment to the published tier in AEM, and the mobile app is basically pointing to the publish tier of AEM and saying, hey, give me all the events in that JSON that I showed you earlier. It takes that JSON, it styles it, it does whatever it needs to do, it presents it in a mobile-friendly way, and then that's how the end user is interacting with it. Now, this method of sharing this information through JSON is true for pretty much any third-party application, right? Any third-party application, you're just making a call to AEM published tier, getting the content in JSON format, and styling it however you want for your channel. So this is very similar to every other approach. Let's go into email now. So in email, first step, again, publish the fragment to the published tier. The second step is, what I'm doing is I'm calling Adobe I/O Runtime. I/O Runtime is our version of serverless, basically. It's running on OpenWhisk, and it's very similar to AWS Lambda, if you're familiar with that. And so you're just running a couple of simple functions out in the cloud. You just make a trigger it, pass it some information, it'll do some processing, and then stop, right? So what it's doing is, it's first, my function that's sitting in I/O Runtime is first making a call out to published tier, getting the JSON, and then it's actually hitting Adobe Campaign to send an email. So Adobe Campaign has this feature called transactional messaging, so transactional emails. Think of it as an API endpoint associated with an email template, right? Now, if I trigger that endpoint and I pass it like three things. I pass it, here's an image, here's what the body, here's the ticket price, here's the address, and here's what the subject should look like. It'll then basically, put all those variables into the right spots in that email template and send out the email. So this is how the email, this is how I got the email from Campaign sent me that email basically, and then the end user interacts with the email. And this is all fully automated, right? Like all I had to do was send this through a workflow. The workflow makes a call out. It goes and looks for the JSON, passes that off to Campaign, and then triggers the email. With voice and chat, both are very similar, except for how the end user interacts with the content. So the first piece is always publish a fragment to the published tier. I make my call to I/O Runtime. Runtime goes into the published tier, give me all the event information in JSON, pull that in, and what it's doing is it's dynamically creating questions and answers in Microsoft Q&A Maker. So Microsoft Q&A Maker, think of it as a database with just questions and answers, and you can have multiple types of questions, like where is X? Give me the address of X, whatever. But the answer is still the same. It's the address that's coming in from the JSON, which is sitting in the content fragment, right? So that's how we're getting all this information, creating questions and answers, and dynamically and populating Microsoft Q&A Maker. And then Azure Bot Services has a couple of channels available to it, one being chatbot, another being Cortana, right? And all you're doing, and that's how the end user integrates or interacts with this content through these channels. Whether I'm typing a question in the chatbot, whether I'm asking Cortana the same question, it's just converting that, making a call out to Q&A maker, getting the answer back, and then displaying it to the user, right? So this is how I was able to chat and ask the same question or through voice, and I'm still getting the same answer. Those answers are coming from that same content fragment. That's the key, right? You've edited it once, you've created that content once, but now I'm interacting with it completely differently, right? Because I don't care about like presentation when I'm chatting in a chatbot or when I'm asking a voice assistant, right? So hopefully this gave you a sense of how you can take that centralized content if it's created in the right fashion in a modular way, and how we're able to basically take that, publish it out, and then now all my other channels and applications can consume that same content. So my message is consistent. I'm not doing double work. I'm just creating this content once and editing it in one place. And I'm able to reach my customers with a few clicks in a few seconds, right? So hopefully you got the key takeaways from this session. How do I manage this omni-channel content? How do I scale creation and reuse this content? Because I don't want to create this multiple times. And adjust your delivery, right? So each channel is unique. Each channel, end users interact with the content in each channel completely differently. How I interact with content on a website is totally different from a voice assistant or maybe a watch or anything else, right? So it's important to, get your message out to your customers where they are happy and where they want to interact with you, but still manage the same content in one place. So just a little plug for Danny's team. They have some great tutorials that they've worked on over the years. And so Weekend AEM website tutorial is great on how to create a modern website in AEM. Weekend Events is for the SPA editor tutorial, which is the in-context editing of a single-page app in AEM. And the new one is Weekend Headless, which is basically getting that content to a mobile app, which is in a headless JSON fashion.
Yeah, and that last one will be published later in the week, actually. So
yeah, so this is like
a Evolve sneak preview.
Yeah, for you guys. So this is.
We thought it would be ready for this session, but now it's a sneak peek. So.
So thank you all for joining us, and we can open it up for questions if anyone has any.